So how does your proposal today, how does this fit into the larger picture of developing 5G and moving aside some of the roadblocks?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. We're in the middle of this transition right now from what people understand as the current generation of wireless service, 4G, to this new 5G technology. The big difference is that transition is going to enable a lot of the innovation that you're hearing about now, whether it's autonomous vehicles, the Internet of Things, remote surgery, AI. We need to upgrade our network to get it to 5G to support those types of deployments. And we're working at the FCC to try to cut the unnecessary regulatory red tape that is threatening to hold that back.
But the regulatory costs are one thing, the financial costs are another. I mean, these networks are extremely costly. How do telecoms handle that?
That's right. So we estimate that it should take about $275 billion in network investment to deploy 5G. And these reforms that we're looking at to reform our infrastructure deployment rules could make a big difference in making that economical. The ideas that we put out there today for streamlining are estimated to cut 80% of the regulatory costs of deployment. That's going to mean thousands of more cell sites that are now economical to deploy, and they're going to push these 5G networks further out and provide service to even more Americans.
How does wireless infrastructure fit into the infrastructure plan overall?
Yeah, it's certainly a big piece of it. When you look at infrastructure more broadly, broadband is a key piece of that. And just like we need to reform a lot of our other infrastructure deployment rules in the country, our broadband infrastructure deployment rules are right there. And at the FCC, we have authority to do that. And on March 22nd, we'll be voting on a plan that will help speed the deployment of that broadband infrastructure.
The mayor of San Jose, California, just quit an FCC task force that was examining these issues of wireless deployment, saying that local regulators would lose control. What's your response to that?
There's a couple different issues here. The one that we're teeing up for March actually looks at federal environmental and historic permitting processes. That other issue goes to a question of state and locals and their roles in deployments. This first piece goes to federal environmental historic. We're also taking a look at the state and local. I think we all have an important role here to make sure that these deployments are economical. The costs of deploying these networks are high enough. We don't need it unnecessarily going to regulatory red tape. So I think states, locals, the FCC, we're all looking at ways to streamline the deployment rules.
How would you rank the U.S. when it comes to global competition? Obviously, we know there's been progress in South Korea, for example. We've been talking about it this week coming from Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. Where does the U.S. fall right now in the hierarchy?
Right now, we lead the world when it comes to the deployment of 4G wireless, and that's why we need to update our regulations so we can deploy this next generation of 5G. A lot of countries look to the United States. They saw that we led the world in 4G. They want to lead the world in 5G, and that's why for this global competitiveness, we need to step up to the plate, reform our regulatory structures, and if we do that, and I'm confident that we are, then we're also going to help lead the world in 5G. So I think as a country, we're in really good shape right now. We just need to reform our regulatory structures.
Why do you think the U.S. needs to lead in 5G? I mean, can you talk about the economic benefits when it comes to jobs, when it comes to actual people?
It's a good point. So 5G, the deployment of 5G is estimated to enable 3 million new jobs in this country, if we get it right. It's estimated to add $500 million to the GDP. That's jobs everywhere from the deployment itself to all the innovation and opportunity it enables. When we get these high-speed broadband connections to more Americans, that gives them access to jobs, it gives them access to economic opportunity. So that's really why we're trying to take these actions.
So if we don't take these actions, if the U.S. doesn't lead in 5G, how might you see U.S. citizens being harmed?
There's no doubt there's countries around the world that are more than happy to fill the void and be the first ones to deploy 5G. That's going to mean a lot of these innovative, cutting-edge services and devices we're talking about are going to be deployed and launched in those countries first. I want the $275 billion in investment, the $500 billion added to the GDP to happen here in the United States first. I want to see all those products that consumers are reading about launched here first. I don't want to sit back and watch that happen in another country. And in the FCC, we're certainly not doing that. We're moving quickly to make sure that we can enable all that private sector investment and innovation to take place here.